We are now on parts bag B, and we're now on step 8. So we need quite a few parts here. So I've been gathering from the parts tree E, E4, E5, which is this one, and E6, which is this one. Also from parts tree F, the battery strap, and also from parts tree C, a couple of the small spacers, which say if you need to use them because of the battery size, but I'm going to put them in anyway, and we'll see what the sizes we need when we do the battery install. And we need C9. We need to remove the little nib from the tree when you cut it off, so I've done that as well. And we also need a variety of screws from parts bag B. We need the 3x18mm panhead machine screw. We need a couple of MA1s, which are 3x22mm self-tapping screws. We need MB5s, which are 3x15 self-tapping screws. We need 2 of the MA3s, which are the 3x10mm self-tapping screws. We need a washer, a 3mm washer. We need the mount screw, which is again the parts bag B, and we need a snap pin. We had to take from here, this is off of the E5, the supporting braces when they put the mould in. And again, again, when you take the parts off the parts trees, either use a bit of wet and dry paper just to sand them smooth, so just give them a little sand through. I've also used sometimes a scalpel just to cut them neatly afterwards, just to make them so they're nice and smooth and they don't there's no rough edges. So busy step. So let's get all these components put together. So an area to note on step 8 when you're putting the E5 onto the E6 is we need to line these holes on E5 with the middle holes here, and we'll be then lining these middle holes as well. So that'll be here and here, and these 2 posts here and here. So we need to make sure they're lined up on those middle ones. So that's the area to note on those, and use the correct size screw for screwing through these. So the slightly longer ones on these outer ones and the 15mm ones on these middle ones. So yeah, just little note there. So here we have step 8 completed. Again, so just paid attention to the screw sizes, screwing E6, E4, 5 and 6 together, and making sure that the battery holder is correctly on and your pin is correctly in. So that's now completed. That's step 8. We're now moving on to step 9. Okay, we're now on to step 9. So step 9, I've gathered from the parts tree the F10 and F9. I've also gathered the C3s, and I've gathered together the screws required as well, which is 3x12mm machine screws, 2 of those. Which are MB3s. MA2s, we need 4 of the 3mm by 12mm self-tapping screws, and we need 12 of MA8, which are the 3mm nut. Looks like we're going to get a little bit busy here with the 2-part epoxy resin again, where we need to sort of use this rubberized cement, and we need to cement in the nuts into the locations onto the chassis. So we've got here 4 points here and here where the nuts need to go in at the front of the chassis. We've got another 4 points here, and we need to cement them into here as well, into these C3. So I've got a little bit of gluing of the nuts to do, and then I'll be back. This is going to be step 9, a little bit busy again, which is good. And well, I've just completed step 9, and on the frame here, for these are the chassis frame rails. This is F10 and F9 respectively. I've glued in the C3 part in here using some epoxy adhesive. I was just waiting for that really to go off now, and that should be fine. And I've screwed in the machine screw in the front, which collects one of the little nuts that we already epoxied in already, and the self-tapping screws on both of those rails. So that is step 9 now complete, and we're on to step 10. So for step 10, we need some more parts from the part tree. So from part tree C, we need C11, which is the one labelled A, which you'll see on here. It's labelled A very kindly on there for us. And part tree C12, which is labelled B, labelled on there. We need a couple of these subframe channels. These are the metal subframe channels from the parts bag B. And we need a couple of C3s as well, and we also need part F5. So when I mixed up some of the epoxy resin to stick these nuts into place on the chassis, I mixed a little bit more up and sort of had the foresight to see that I needed to do 2 of those nuts here as well. So I actually did put these in on the previous step there, just to save me some time. So we technically now have those in place as well, so they're epoxied in. And so we now need to put these together, this section together. This is going to be mounting the servo. So here we have the frame rails in place on either side on both the C11 and the C12. In the right orientation, we've got the subframe channel there, and we've got this brace in here, this F5 part in that part there, and they're screwed through and using those captured nut systems, using the 3x8mm panhead screws, machine screws. So that's step 10 complete. So just a note on this step 10. Where you have this system on the page here at the bottom of the page. You can have the servo in 2 different positions. So we've got the position where the servo is going to be mounting in the front of the car, along the line, something like this. That's what we've got at the moment. If you're inclined to change your position of the servo so it's an upright, the diagram here is referring to page 19 of the manual. If you're going to change that position, and you need to rotate this F5 piece in these between these 2 rails to enable you to do that. So that's what this is referring to here. I'm going to go with the setup where the servo is positioned front facing. So we'll go from that for now. So we're now on step 11, and we are again some more parts from parts tree. So the C11 and C12 again. These are again labelled the A and B. So there's on there. We also need the chassis subframe channel. So this is F7 from parts tree F. We need those metal chassis sub channels again as well, and we need 4 of the C3s, which we've got here, and we need again from parts bag, we need MB4s. We need 4 of those, which are the 3x8mm screws, and we need the MA8, which is 4 of the 3mm nut. And in this step, we are going to be putting together very similar to what we did before, but this is going to be for the rear subframe assembly. So we need to pop these into the channels, pop these into the C11s and T12s, and we need to do a little bit of epoxying again for the nut, the C3, and we need to be making aware that we are on the right position on the channel. So it's making sure that we get this one here, this C3 in the 3rd one in. So if you're on this side, you make sure it's in the third one in there, and if you're on this side, you're making sure that this one is the third one in there as well. So it's a few little bits to do. Okay, so we've done step 11 now. So I've put on the C11s and the C12 with the screws all in place, captive nuts in place, and as per the diagram here, so this one, we need to make sure that this one was glued in here, and then when you turn this round the other way, you need to make sure this one was glued in here. So that's what this drawing is trying to tell you. So the orientation is correct, and this one's in there, and that's done. So that's step 11 complete. Okay, right, we are now on step 12. And step 12, we've got to put together on the chassis the cross members we made, the front and rear subframe. And so we've got to do the front, which is slid on here now. We've got to do the front one and the rear one. So we need some components from bag B. So we need some MB3s, we need 2 of those, which are the 3 by 12 millimeter screws. And we need the 3 by 8 millimeter MB4s screws, they're panhead machine screws, and a couple of the spring washers to hold in place. So we'll put together now the front subframe onto the chassis. So paying attention to the drawing here, we're going to use on the longer of the panhead screws, we're going to use the spring washers. That was going to go through the captured nut system that we've got on the actual chassis rail, and we're going to pop that through. We're going to pop the spring washer on first, and then we're going to pop this through the captive nut that we cemented in the earlier steps. So just going to screw that through there. That's one side. We go, and we're then going to use, without the spring washer, the smaller of the 3mm by 8mm panhead screws. We're going to use those, go through that main upright, and there we are. That's one side done, and it's a case of repeating that for the other side. And then once we've done that, that'll be the front member done, and then we've got to do the same again for the rear member. So it's just a case of using the correct screws and bolting things in, and literally from steps 12, 13 and 14 we are literally putting into the chassis the components that we've built up in the previous steps using the correct screws. So it's as simple as that. Just follow the drawing and you should be fine. So on step 13, I've got the screws ready. These are the MB3s, the 3 by 12mm screws, and you need to make sure you put this in the correct orientation on the chassis. So got my chassis here, again pointing it with the battery in, you've got the battery here, that's pointing this way, and you need to make sure that you correctly put the one with the one left over on the rail, on the chassis rail. That is the right orientation, and you slide that over onto there, and then you screw them in place using the screws. So there we have step 13, the rear subframe all screwed onto place. Now we move on to step 14. So for step 14, we need some more screws from our bag B, We need a couple of the 3x25mm panhead machine screws. We need a couple of the 3x12mm machine screws, and also from the sticker pack, from the decal pack, we need some stickers. We need to pop these caution stickers, one onto the motor and one onto the chassis. Okay, so for step 14, we need to take our gearbox assembly and we need to follow the drawing, which is to scoop this bottom of the gearbox through the chassis at the front end here and sort of scoop it through. So it's a case of we've got to maneuver this in and we get it into position. So a case of, as I would term it, jiggle it. There we go, jiggled, and my Ronnie Barker days. There it is. It's jiggled into place, and yeah, we need to, from the bottom, we need to turn over and we need to screw into place using the relevant screws and apply the decals of the warnings. There we go. We now have step 14 complete. We have the motor and gearbox mounted into the chassis, and we've got the caution stickers onto the motor and on the bottom of the chassis on the gearboxes and things where they should be. So that's all in place and all done. We're now on step 15. For step 15, we need some components from parts tree P. So we need P1 and P2 and P3, and we also need from the bag B MB10s. We need 4 of those, and we need to make 2. Essentially, we're making 2 drive shafts, one for the gearbox to the rear, from the gearbox to the rear, and gearbox to the front. So we need to manipulate these cross joints into P2 and into P1s and build the drive shafts together. So that's what we're going to do next. So in step 15, you've got to manipulate the cross joints into the jaws of each of the half of the drive shafts, and I'm just going to show you the last one because I've managed to get these on. So it is a case of using a pair of pliers but gently moving these in, and I found that the way to do this is to get one half of the cross joint through the hole and get it all the way through the hole, and then lift the other half over, and then a case of just manipulating it so it goes in, and there you are. You've got to be a bit heavy-handed, but you've also got to be a bit gentle. So the idea is that it makes sure it works freely. So there we are. That's step 15. We're on step 16 now, and again we've got to now pop these shafts. These are the ones with the you can see there's a pattern to them, almost like there's 5 flutes, and 5 flutes are going to sort of engage into the other half of the drive shaft. But we're concerned with these 2, and we need to pop them onto the gearbox at the bottom, and we need to use these MB8s/2. They are 2.4 by 11mm pin screws, and these have got a pin on one end, and they are threaded at the other. And again, this is testament to the engineering here that goes into these kits. You've got a pin, which is a flat pin, a thread, and then also you've got a hex driver, so you use an Allen key to drive them through. So yeah, we're going to pop these now onto the gearbox, and again, you know, great. I don't know if we can pick this up on camera, these pins. Let's see if we can do that. Yeah, and then yeah, wow, engineering, as you can see. Right, let's get that done. So just to show you how these go on, got the hole in the shaft, the output shaft of the gearbox. You pop this on and line the hole up, As I've got my Tamiya X drivers, I'm going to use those, but you could use the Canon key in the kit. You pop the pin section in first, so that goes through the hole, and the idea is you're going to engage that hole that we've seen there. So it's a case of line up the hole, pop that through, there we go, and then you don't have to go too mad with this, just screw these through so they're flush, because the threaded section is actually screwing into the soft plastic of the P1 piece. And so what I've done is I'm just sort of finger tight through, and I'm just popping that through so that I'm just literally, so it's flush. So it's just under the flush. There we go. There we go. So that's it. That's done. So there's your output done. So that's 16 done. So we're now on step 17, and on step 17 we need some parts from the parts trees. First of all, we need F8, so parts tree F8, and we need one of those. And then we need C5 from parts tree C and C6 from parts tree C. And the good thing about it, if you look carefully in the drawing, they've labelled them up B. So in fact, again, I'm going to try and get this on here. In this section here, there is a B that's stamped. So Tamiya, in their wisdom, have put the relevant stamp in there. There's an A in this one and a B in the other one. So you can't get them wrong. So, you know, fair play to Tamiya there. That's forward thinking and making sure that you get the right pieces on the right way, and you need to make sure the chassis is orientated correctly, and I'm using this non-recyclable mark here as my reference point, because that's the only one that's on here, and I've got that on, and the chassis pointing the right way, so you get the correct C6s on the chassis on this side and C5s and the B parts on this side. So that's how I'm sort of referencing this. There probably is some other reference points, but this was the first one that was blatantly obvious to be, and that's what I'm using. So lots of MB3s. They are the 3x12mm screws, the machine screws. So it's literally screw these components onto the chassis. So here we are, we're just finished off step 17 now. So the 10 screws here, we've literally nipped these in. Don't go too mad. The soft plastic, you don't want to strip the soft plastic, you just want to nip these all the way through so that these are not moving nowhere. And again here at this end, you just want to nip these up so they're nipped up and in, and that's not moving. So there we are, that's step 17, and that's parts bag B now completed. So we're now moving on to parts bag C.